Hey guys, it's Becky with Design Bundles, and today I'm here to share with you my 10 favorite beginner Cameo hacks. So maybe hacks is too strong of a word, but we definitely have some tips and tricks that we're going to share with you, and I really think that at least 9 out of 10 beginners are going to really enjoy the things that we talk about, and most of this will be new information for you. So I'm really excited because I do teach a lot of beginners, whether it's in person or online or through videos, and I usually get the same questions and go over the same responses, which I never mind. I love questions from you guys. But I figured I'd put together a little video and show you my top favorite. Like I said, we're going through all 10. So first and foremost, let me say I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings by doing this video. Okay, these are my opinions. I've been doing this for many moons, but surely everybody has their own opinion, and that's okay. So I'm just throwing that out there to kind of get you all started. So first and foremost, although I love the Silhouette machines, I am not a huge fan of Silhouette vinyl. Now, that doesn't mean that some people don't like it. We all started somewhere, right? But I will say that you really need to experiment with other types of vinyl, because sometimes the frustration that you experience as a beginner can be from not using the right materials. So now you guys know from my videos, I'm a fan of the Orcal 651. And I also use tape for my transfer tape. Some people will also tell you that you can use clear contact paper from either Walmart, Amazon, or a dollar store. That's fine, it's completely up to you, but I prefer to use transfer tape because that's what it's designed for. And I just didn't have very good luck with the contact paper when I first started. So I just believe that if you're starting with the right materials, that you'll have an easier time with your first cuts. Okay, so now that does not always go towards all Silhouette brand materials. They do have some really good materials, like I really like their temporary tattoo paper. They have some printable foil sheets that work really well. So, just make sure you do your research. That's where I'm going with that one. But just because it's Silhouette brand does not mean that it is going to be the best available out there. Now, number 2, the same goes for mats. Now, I know that, a lot of people will disagree with me, and I'm a big fan of cutting without a mat. That is because I don't like to buy replacement mats. I'm kind of a frugal crafter, okay? Which also led me to experiment with the mats available on Amazon. And there are quite a few brands to choose from, but just definitely read the reviews, make sure you're doing your homework, but you can definitely find cutting mats a lot cheaper than what you can get them either straight from Silhouette America or even just the Silhouette America brand at your local retailer or Amazon. So just something else to keep in mind, just make sure you're checking out that alternative. Number 3 is going to be the Autoblade. Now, if you watched my review of the Silhouette Cameo 4, my initial cut with the Autoblade was really well, okay? But my second and third cuts did not go so well. So, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm just going to throw it out there that if you're experiencing a lot of problems with your cutting or your settings or anything like that, think about switching back to a regular ratchet blade. You can get them on Amazon. Sometimes your local retailer will sell them. I usually buy them in bulk, and they're a lot cheaper than the Autoblades. So just something to keep in mind, because starting with the Cameo 3 and now evidently into the Cameo 4, there seems to be a group of people that their Autoblade works really well. And hey, if you fit into that category, I am not telling you to do anything different. But if number 1, you are having problems, and number 2, you are a frugal crafter like myself, check out the ratchet blade. So next is cutting without a mat. Now, we did just do our very first cut without a mat on the Cameo 4, and it worked great. I have no complaints. And that is one of the big benefits to getting a Cameo over another brand, is that you do have the ability to cut without a mat because you can move your roller back and forth. Now, you may ask, why do you want to cut without a mat? Well, it comes back to being frugal, because I don't have to buy replacement mats quite as often, but also your Silhouette can cut really long transfers. So for example, if you want to do a big quote for your wall, or if you're doing a really tall welcome sign for your front door, in those instances, as long as you set up your design correctly in Silhouette Studio, your Cameo will continue to feed the vinyl out the back, and you can cut. I know that I have done 10 feet, so we'll have to do some research and see exactly what the hard limit is. But 10 feet I think is very, very generous. So I really do love cutting without a mat. Now, speaking of cutting, your next tip is to always do a test cut. Okay, now not very many beginners seem to learn about the test cut feature. That's not your fault, but more of us should tell you about that. Okay, you always need to do a test cut, especially when you're first starting out. And if you don't know where the test cut is, it is on the bottom of your send panel. It's just a little button that says test, and it's going to cut a square with a triangle on the inside. Now, to know that you got a successful test cut, you need to be able to weed the square and leave the triangle alone. Okay, so as long as you can do that, you got good cut settings. But doing a test cut may seem like a minor inconvenience and you just want to skip over it. Don't do it. Like, it will trick you every time. As soon as you don't do a test cut, something's going to happen with your cut settings. Okay, so I always recommend doing a test cut to save yourself a lot of headache. Speaking of headaches and cutting, I do always recommend using a weeding box, especially when you're first starting out. Now, a weeding box is going to be a box that you draw around your design. And basically, not only is it going to tell you while you're weeding, hey, my entire design is within this box, it's also going to make it easier for you to pull that vinyl up. And it speaks to the frugal crafter in me because I get to keep the surrounding vinyl intact so that I can continue to cut without a mat. So that is also really exciting. Now that we're talking about weeding, let's jump over and talk about weeding tool. Now, when you got your Silhouette, you may or may not have gotten the trusty old weeding hook. And I'm not saying that people don't enjoy that. I do not personally enjoy that. I use a pair of fine tip tweezers, and I just find that they are really beneficial, not just for general weeding, but for getting into those small areas and weeding fine detail. Another thing that people talk about a lot, I haven't personally tried it myself, but it's called a pen. And it is essentially a mechanical pencil with a sewing needle fed into the end of it, so that basically you have something to hold on to that has a really sharp needle point, and that helps people with weeding too. So when you're looking for weeding tweezers, just make sure that you get fine point, and they want to be really sharp, and the same with the pen, but try to also make sure you get something that will cap the end, because you can actually draw blood with those. So, ask me how I know. So definitely very useful, but potentially dangerous, so I'm just throwing that out there. Don't leave around small children. I'm gonna sum that up with that statement. Okay, so now that we've talked about all the tips I have for cutting, let's also talk about the fact that you do not need to run out and buy a whole bunch of really expensive projects to work on. All right, because there's nothing more frustrating about having a project mess up than to know that you spent a lot of money on it. So as a beginner, I implore you to head to your nearest dollar store and go in there and just look around, because I know at my local dollar store, I can get wine glasses, I can get clear cutting boards. If I want to play with HTV, I can get socks. I can also get like the little oven mitts. Those were really, really popular around Christmas and for teacher gifts. So just go in there and, set a budget. Okay, budgets are always good, even in the dollar store. But, just say, okay, I want to pick out 10 things. And then for $10 plus tax in your area, you can have 10 individual projects to test out your materials, see what you like, what you don't like, and maybe try out some new techniques. So now that we've talked about all of our projects, let's talk about the software. Now, a lot of beginners do not know that there are different editions to Silhouette Studio. Now, you get the basic free edition with your Cameo, and for a lot of people, that's all you need. That is A-okay. I'm not telling you have to upgrade, but upgrades are available depending on what you use the software for. For example, as a beginner, you may have or may not have experienced that you cannot open an SVG file in the free edition. That's okay, because most designers have gotten on board and they have started including your DXF files. So DXF are the file types that you can open in the free edition of the software. But If you just really like SVGs, or you want to just check out what is the difference between all the different versions of the software, then make sure that you check out the comparison chart on the Silhouette America website, because it will break down each individual benefit for you and let you know what edition of the software that's included in. You can also shop around for the best prices because, you know, crafting is an expensive hobby, especially when you're just getting started. But I do know that with online retailers, you can often upgrade for a fraction of the cost than buying it straight from the Silhouette America website. And last but not least, let me talk to you about my favorite part of Silhouette Studio. And I know that I gush and gush and gush about this all the time, but as a new Cameo user, I want to draw you into the fold. And just know that there are two things to keep in mind. Number one, Silhouette Studio is a very robust designing software in terms of using it for your cutting machine. Okay, now you never have to explore all the additional benefits that it offers, but just know when it comes to designing, if you ever want to start designing your own cut files, you want to design printables, any of that, Silhouette Studio is still the software for you. So definitely take the time to invest in learning Silhouette Studio, because I think that you will be very pleasantly surprised with everything that it makes available to you. Like I said, you can even do printables. You can print straight from your software. Heck, a lot of crafters use Silhouette Studio and they don't even have Cameos. So just something to keep in mind. You may or may not ever need those additional features, like I said, especially if you're primarily a cutter, but just know that they are there, and they are there for you. On the reverse aspect of that, if you already know another designing software, do not feel pressured to use Silhouette Studio. Now, ultimately, you do have to use Silhouette Studio to communicate and cut with your Cameo, but that doesn't mean that you can't set up your designs in a different software and then import them. As a matter of fact, when I cut on my Cricut machine, that's exactly what I do. I design in Silhouette Studio, and then I save and export the SVG to use in Design Space. So you can do the same. For example, maybe you like Photoshop, maybe you like Affinity, maybe you use an online software. Anything that you can save into a PNG, JPEG, SVG format, you will be able to bring those into Silhouette Studio. Primarily the SVG or DXF, right? But even images, you can bring those in and learn to manipulate those in the software. So hopefully I gave you some really great tips. Those of course are my favorites. And if you have any questions or want to know something about the software or something about your machine, I really do love to get questions from you guys. And you can just leave them in the comments below, because I do personally, me personally, I come back and visit with you guys and check in and answer the questions. So I really appreciate you watching today. Also, especially if you're new, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we always have a lot of really cool tutorials and some more tips and tricks to share with you for using your Silhouette Cameo. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.